Okay, good afternoon to all the students. In the last lecture, we had completed till the accounting method. Today, we are going to start with the potential method. Now, I'm starting the potential method because you can relate with the accounting method. I hope I am clearly audible to all of you. Okay. Okay. So till now, we were in the accounting method. In the accounting method, we were assigning the cost to the operations. How that cost came, that will be learning in the potential method by taking the reference of it. What is the difference between the accounting method and the potential method? When we are going for the potential method gives the cost to the whole data structure. Okay, so till now in the accounting methods, we were assigning the cost to the operations. Now we'll be assigning the cost to the whole data structure. And from that, giving the cost to the whole data structure means you are giving the exact pocket money. The pocket money is given to you for the whole month, and then you are dividing it into your usage. Your usage is your accounting method, and the whole cost that is being assigned to you per month is the potential method. Means the cost is assigned to the whole data structure, not the single operations. Then you are dividing that cost into this for each operation from the whole assigned to you. Now, let us directly go with the example. Before moving to the example, there are some formulas. Okay. D1, D0, D2, D3 till Dn. The D represents the data structure, and the cost represents the cost assigned to each and every data structure. So this is my potential function. Potential function that calculates the potential change, means how many cost is assigned per function. So that is a potential change. Consider as you are climbing the stairs. You are climbing 5 floors. So, and when you are climbing, you will need more energy rather than the coming towards the downstairs. From 5th to floor to 1 floor when you are coming, the less energy will be needed than the climbing 5 floors from 0 to 5. Same as the cost is been divided as per the operations. That which operation needs the amount of cost. What is the potential change? Consider the cost assigned to the operations from the whole data structure as an energy assigned to it. So some of the operations will be needing the more energy and some will be needing the less energy. Same as in the accounting method, we were assigning more to the to the push operation. To the insert operation, we assigned the cost more rather than the deletion operation. Yes, the pop operation. So the potential function represents the potential change that how much energy is being consumed by the operation that is done. So DI is the data structure and R is the cost, something that is assigned to the data structure. Okay. Now the amortized cost can be derived from the potential function. So what is the formula for that? C dash represents the amortized cost of the function. Ci is the actual cost the function needs. Di is the total amount of cost that is assigned to the data structure minus the cost used by the operation. This function, this potential function is a change function that from the total cost, if I'm having 200 rupees with me, then I'm using some amount of money. So from that 200, I will minus that money, the used money. So the total amount of the total cost assigned to the data structure is D of I, and you are subtracting the actual cost or the actual energy used by the function. So it is actual cost plus the potential change. For the potential change, it is D of I minus D of I minus 1, because each and every operation will require one amount of time. So now considering the example of a push and pop, the potential change, first of all, consider that this is the stack. This is the stack. What is the cost of whole stack? Can I say the cost of the whole stack? We don't know. So can I represent as S? The whole cost of a stack data structure is S. So when I'm pushing any of the item into the stack, it will be S plus 1. When I'm pushing any of the item that in the data structure, that is S plus 1 minus S. When I'm pushing anything into the data structure, it would be the stack. There will be, we don't know that it is the first value or the last value. So whatever will be there in the stack, that is represented as S, and I'm adding 1 to it. So it is S plus 1. The total cost is S. So S plus 1 minus 1. Consider that this is the stack. These are the values in the stack, 2, 4, and 6. Now when I'm adding to the stack, adding any element to the stack, this will be my S, the numbers. When I'm adding any element to stack, so that will be S plus 1, right? And the total cost is total assigned cost to the whole data structure is S. So the potential change will be S plus 1 minus S, because we don't know whether it is the first element or not. If it is the first element, then it will be S plus 1 directly. But we don't know. In general terms, it would be S plus 1 when I'm adding the element minus the cost of the whole data structure. So cancelling this, what will be the cost of the potential change will be 1. Now, calculating the amortized cost for any operation. The amortized cost for the operation is the actual cost plus the potential change. So potential change we calculated. Potential change is the actual cost of data structure minus the cost of operation. Now, what is the potential change? Potential change is this, and the actual cost. Actual cost of a push operation is 1. So 1 plus 1, 2. So the amortized cost is 2. So the question that was asked in the last session, that how the amortized cost came. This is the thing, that's why we got the amortized cost is 2. Any doubts still now? We can take another example, that is an array, but it is all same things. The data structures are array, linked list, all the things has been implemented by array. You can implement the linked list with the array. So all the examples are based on this only. The same thing. Now calculating the cost for the pop operation. If we go for the pop operation, the whole cost of the stack is S. And when we remove the item from the, when I remove the item from the stack, in the general form, it would be, in the general form, if I remove this item from the stack, it would be S minus 1 when I remove any element from the array, it would be S minus 1. So S minus 1 is the operation that we are doing. So what is the potential change? It is S minus S minus 1. So it is S minus 1 minus S, whatever you do. So S will be cancelled out, minus 1. We cannot take the amortized cost in the minus form. So rather than minus 1, it would be 0. The actual cost is 1. 1 minus 1 is equals to 0. So therefore, the cost of the operation, the potential cost or the amortized cost of the pop operation is 0. Okay. Is there any doubt in the pop operation? Okay. So the next is multi-pop operation, calculating the cost of multi-pop operation. In the pop operation, there is only one element. When it is multi-pop, it is k element. So it would be S minus k dash, or else we can say the k elements. Just wait a minute, there is a connectivity issue. So for the multi-pop operation, it is S comma K. So it is stack comma the number of value that you need to delete. If it is 3, then it will be minimum of what is present in the S. So potential change will be S minus K dash S minus the total potential cost that is assigned to the stack data structure, that is S minus S K dash. So it would be minus K dash. Again, it is in minus. So for multipop, also it is 0. The amortized cost will be 0. So this is all about the potential method. In the potential method, we are giving the cost to the whole data structure, not just the operation. And from that given cost, we are finding the amortized cost of accounting method, or amortized cost for any operation. Is there any doubts regarding the aggregate method, accounting method, and the potential method? Anyone from you here? Whenever the question is asked in the exam about the amortized analysis, you need to write down 3 methods and 1 example of stack. That's it. Total theory. That is, if you don't show this calculation, it is fine. You need to just explain the example in the theory form. You need to, for the potential change, you need to write down the formula for finding the amortized cost. That's it. The next topic is analyzing all these statements, whether you say the control statements or each and every single statements of the algorithm. And then we'll be moving towards the analyzing the sorting algorithm. So analyzing the control statements that we have already done in the starting when I was explaining you the order of growth, or in the starting of the chapter. So the first example, directly we'll be starting with the example. The example is just a simple set of instruction given to you. So how much amount of time does that instruction take? Can anyone say me? It is already given in the PPT. Can you explain why? Am I mute in this? No. So each and every line, when it is a sequential code and we don't have any looping statement, each and every line will be taking 1 unit of time, and it will be in the function of n. Analyzing control statements means analyzing the algorithm will be giving you the quadratic equation, and that quadratic equation will be in a function of n. Am I clear to that? We had already studied the big O notation, omega notation. In that we have studied have to write any of the equation in the function of n, and the highest order of that equation is its worst case complexity. Moving on to the next, that is analyzing the for loop. When it is a for loop and it is not nested, at that time each and every for loop, if we trace this, in this for loop I is equals to 1 for the first time, so the condition will be true. The cost of initialization will be 1. Then the comparison will be done till n plus 1 times. If in between you have any doubts, any query, just write into the chat box. If you have forgotten about the analysis, then also you can say it to me. I will go through it again. Anyone needs the repetition? Still again we are doing the same thing. I'm explaining once again about this for loops. Only some of the students have answered yes. So I think maximum students, the answer is no. No reply, I will consider as no. So if you are aware of it, you can reply. The maximum students are saying not replying, that means I need to repeat. So let's consider the let's do the tracing. All the values of I are being here and I plus plus over here. For the first time, I is initialized to 1 and the condition has been checked. Condition is I less than or equal to n. Consider for this example, n is equals to 10. So when n is equals to 10, 1 is less than or equal to 10. So I will be plus plus and the printf statement will be called. So how many times the I will be running? Same time the printf statement will be run. So it is also n times. Again, when I is equals to 2, at that time condition will be true. So again printf statement will be running and I plus plus. When it is 3, condition will be true and I plus plus. So I plus plus will also be running n times. The initialization will be done just one time, but the condition will be checked for n plus 1 times, and I plus plus will also be done n times. Once the condition is false, I plus plus will not be done. So only this condition will be checked, and that will be running for n plus 1 times. So initialization, the cost of initialization is 1. Cost of checking the condition is n plus 1. Cost of I plus plus is n. And the printf statement is also n. So the total cost of this statements, this two statement is 1 plus n plus 1 plus n plus n. To find out the complexity. When we do the analysis of the whole algorithm, step by step, we'll be getting the equation. So whenever we put there the any number of elements, we can get the exact time of its execution. And we can even get that what is its complexity by its quadratic equation. The highest order will be its complexity. So if it is n square, then you can reduce it to n, so that you get to know whenever you are having the same algorithm of that can be written in different ways. So whenever you analyze it step by step sequentially, you will get to know that in which method you are getting the least complexity, and that way you will implement. We know that each and every program of ours can be done in many ways. The implementation can be done in many ways. There are different logics to implement same thing. So that's why we do this analysis, and that's why we write the analysis in a quadratic form, so that we can get that in which method of implementation we are getting the least complexity. Next, for the next statement of the for loop, the first statement will be same. That is, first is initialization, n plus 1. For both the loop, it will be same. That is 1 plus n plus 1 plus n will be same. One more thing, over here, the below equation, the below given equation, that I am not considering. The below given the calculation, I will be doing in a different way. So if you wish, then you can go with this the method I do. Else you can go with this method. Both the methods are correct. Now, the first equation will be 1 plus n plus 1. This is this equation. And this equation will also be the same. That is 1 plus n, 1 plus n plus 1 plus n. And this will be n. The printf statement will be executing n times. So over this, the second inner loop, I'll be multiplying n. The n times that method will be running. Sorry, that loop will be running. So with this equation, that is 1 n plus 1 plus n into n I will be doing, because this is the inner for loop which will be executing till this many times, till the first loop executes. So it would be 1 plus n plus 1 plus n plus 1. I'm writing that equation in the chat box. This would be the whole equation. After you simplify, you will be getting the highest order as n square. Or else you can go with this method. You can multiply both the equations. That will be also considered. So both the methods are correct. The next is recursive call. How you can make the function from the recursive call when you are calculating the Fibonacci series. At that time, Fibonacci series, when you are calculating for 0 or 1. Do you all know Fibonacci series, or should I repeat that also? Umang, what is your question?
Ma'am, when I start is equal to 0 and I less than equal to n, then at that time we will consider cost of I is equal to 0 is equal 1, or I less than is equal to n, n plus 1.
For each and every condition check, it would be n plus 1.
Yes, ma'am. Got it, ma'am.
Is there any other doubt? Okay. So when you are taking the Fibonacci series, at that time, the Fibonacci series would be starting from 2. Because if you take 0, the answer will be 0. If you take 1, it would be 0 plus 1, 1. So whenever you start with 2, the Fibonacci series will be after that. It would be 0 plus 1, 2. From the 2, we'll be starting the actual calculating, that is 1 plus 2, 3. If you start from 2, it will be 2 plus 2, 4. Then 4 plus 3, 7, and in that manner. And if you start the series from 0, the answer will change. It will be 0 plus 1, 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 1, 3. So both the ways you can try it. Over here, as a function, just for the the function says the Fibonacci series is n plus n minus 1 plus n minus 2. This is n minus 1 from the n elements. I'm having the series of n elements. N minus 1 represents the previous element. If I'm finding for 3, then n minus 1 will be 2 and n minus 2 will be 1. Fibonacci series is the addition of two previous terms. So the first previous term is represented as n minus 1 and the second previous is represented as n minus 2. So the Fibonacci function is Fibonacci n minus 1 plus Fibonacci n minus 2. Now the condition is n is less than or equal to 2. Therefore 2 is constant over there. N will be starting from 2. Because 1 plus 1, it would be giving me 2. So n is starting from 2. Therefore 2 is constant there. So how you can make the function? Function is constant plus the previous element and the second previous element. That is t of n minus 1 plus t of n minus 2. So when you take any n, it will be giving you the answer as 4. You can give any n and you can derive what will be the answer at that position by this function. So this is how you make the equation for any recursive call. If I'm finding the recursive call for finding the factorial of 4, for finding the factorial of 4, then for the factorial of 4, it would be, I need to find out factorial of 3, factorial of 2, factorial of 1. So that will be going till n minus 1, n minus 2, n minus 3, n minus, n minus 0, and n minus 1, n minus 2, n minus 3, till n minus n we need to go, right? So that should be written in the T of n when you write. It will be 1 plus n minus whatever you are finding. Yeah. Then these are the three elements: 0, 1, 2, and 3. So 3 is the index. This is the number of inputs, not the numbers which we are given. So yes, there is a mistake in a PPT also, but it is, we cannot say the mistake. It is the two different ways of calculating. So now while loop and if conditions, in those conditional statement also, we'll be calculating. The loop will be going till n minus 1. The condition will be checked. If I write if I is equals to less than or equal to n, that many times some of the statement should be executed. So this will also be n minus 1. Sorry, n plus 1, the conditions will be checked. If I say a of I is equals to 1, means I'm checking whether something is equal to or not. Then at that time, it will be only executing one time. But when we are having any condition, like if I is less than or equal to n, at that time, it would be running till n plus 1 time. So that we can get from the number of inputs or from the condition given to us for all the conditional statements. So this is the example that you need to do right now. And you need to let me know what is the complex, what is the equation you get it for this. All of you try to solve this example and let me know what is the highest order of the equation. Okay, students, do this in your practice work in tomorrow's lecture, or in the next lecture we'll be discussing this. All of you can give me your attendance in the chat box. Okay, thank you everyone.